Welcome to the Moodboard podcast. This is Caesar.
This is Aaron.
And we're two creatives helping others unlock their creative potential by having meaningful and insightful conversations. And we hope that you enjoy this special episode today.
Episode 4. And we're back.
So Aaron and I were reflecting on the last episode 3 about career changes that are unforeseen, that happen to us against our will, let's say. And how do we deal with those moments of uncertainty, which happen, life happens. And we were brainstorming and thinking about 2 potential scenarios that often happen. One of them being you love a job, you really like everything that you're doing, but you get unexpectedly let go, or your role gets terminated, either or. That chapter ends against your will. The other scenario is you don't love a job, but you are not being laid off. And you feel like you are there because either the paycheck is good or is comfortable, but you feel inside that you're not being stretched to do more. So yeah, Aaron and I wanted to explore those 2 scenarios and talk about ways to deal or just explore the conversations that happen.
Sometimes when you're in a role and you're very busy, it's really difficult to keep your portfolio polished and keeping it maintained. But I think the most important thing is to have the way you present yourself into the world, whether that's, through your portfolio or through your resume, having that ready to go at all times is really key. But I would say if there's anything unexpected that comes up, that's the first order of business, right? Having your resume tailored to what you're looking for in your next role, and also presenting yourself in the best light possible to attract what you're looking for. What do you think?
Oh, that's a perfect way to keep things polished, to keep things ready to, just being prepared. I think being prepared, no matter what, is essential. Whether you have to look for a new job or an opportunity arises that you can be ready to strike, because opportunities have a timeline, and if you take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they might find someone else by then. I was going to add to your point that it is also important to keep networking. If you have a job, don't just disappear, and it's important to keep in touch. Whether, not that you necessarily are looking for new opportunities while you're in your job, but you never know. A conversation leads to another conversation, and an introduction could lead you to maybe a better place in your career. So I would keep ourselves open to that scenario of something better might happen. So that's why you network, because you want to connect, and because these people might be useful later down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. In my experience, the people that I've met through, whether that's been through work or through school, those people have become my friends. Those people have become my network, and we've helped each other build our portfolios. We've helped each other work on our resumes. And by sharing this knowledge with each other and sharing our own networks with each other, it improves everything that we do. I've had so many instances when a friend will reach out to me and will be like, hey, I saw this and I thought about you and you should check it out. and it turned into something. So your real, I've heard this somewhere, but that your real net worth is your network, right? And so, yeah, I think surrounding yourself with people, and we talked about this in the previous one, it's surrounding yourself with people who are also trying to strive for more, to improve, and to, just like being around those kinds of people will really help you in cultivate that and nurture that system.
Yes, I was going to add to that a way to future-proof your career is having a solid network. Because no matter what happens, you will always have people on your side that are willing to help you. And they might not have something for you, but they might know someone who could help you. And it's important to cultivate these relationships because things take time, conversations take time, and it's important to start as early as possible to have, I want to say, friendships, professional relationships that know your value, know what you do, and that whenever there is a moment like a unexpected career change, then they can help you position in a better place, or they can just help you out. So yeah, I think a way to future-proof your career is having a solid network.
Yeah, and I also think being a valuable node in that network, being like one of my favorite things to do is knowing, for example, you love shoes, you love designing accessories and things like this. One of my favorite things to do is to find books that I think you might be interested in. And so I do this for some of my friends that I know they like to read. I send them books. Hey, you might like this. You might be interested in this. And bringing some kind of value to the friendship, like I think it comes down to just like people want to work with people that they like, right? And people who are good people to be around with. And I also think that it's important to do the same with your network, right? To just be a contributor to the people that you know and offering them something that will be of value. But here's the thing that really made a difference for me. My mistake before was working on my portfolio in isolation, just by myself. It is really difficult. Some people might not agree with me. Some people might just breeze on. That's great. They're superhuman. That's amazing. But it is so valuable to team up with someone who has other strengths than you to work on your portfolio. Why? Because it is really, sometimes it's a lot more challenging to know what you're good at because you are you. And sometimes it's easier for someone on the outside to identify that and to help you say, hey, I think this is what you need to dial in more on. And so teaming up with someone has helped me enormously because we help each other out. We're able to give each other feedback. And so I think when you're working on a portfolio, that would be my biggest life hack is team up with someone, because there are going to be days when you're going to have highs, and then there's some days that you're going to have lows in terms of, this isn't where it needs to be, or, all these different things that come up during that process. But I'm curious to hear what you think, Cesar. Have you ever teamed up with someone to work on your portfolio, or what are your tips there?
Yes, I have shared with my close friends, colleagues, what I'm working on, and it is very important, as you mentioned, to have an extra set of eyes looking at your work, because other people, and it's also important to ask feedback to people that might not be in your same field, like someone who has no idea, because I think most of the people that look at your work are people that are not familiar with your work or with the kind of job that you do. And sure, HR might have a list of boxes to check, but they're just looking for plain, simple information that is presented in such a way that it's understandable to anyone looking at your work. And I think that's how we should gear our work when we present it, is put it as simple as possible, so that you can get your point across, show your skills, show your quality of ideas, and then show execution. And if you break it down like that, I think it's more effective. And I feel like it's important, as I said, have people that might not familiar with what you do, have people look at your work, because you should present your work in a way that anyone can understand what you do and what you're doing throughout your process. If someone from the outside cannot understand, then I would reevaluate what I'm showing or how I am showing it. But of course, it's also important to show people that knows what you do, that are experts in your field, to give you that like technical knowledge about how to better present your projects. And so there is value in both perspectives. The industry in the experience perspective, and then the very honest, raw opinion from someone that doesn't know what you do. And I see a lot of value in both, and it's important to keep a good balance of both. And then also for you as well, as the person creating the work, creating the portfolio, to curate, to translate that feedback into an application. And as you said, it's an ongoing work in progress. I don't think there is such a thing as perfect, but we can always do better.
Yeah, I think it's also very important to use writing in this process. Like, whenever you articulate the people that this portfolio is for, whenever you break down what they're looking for, and you get specific. You're like, here's the age range that they are in. This is the companies that they work for. This is their background. When you're able to articulate those things, they set up a sort of constraint to help you throughout the process of making your portfolio remember who the end user is going to be, who's going to be the person that will be reading and consuming this information. And another thing too that you touched on, Cesar, which is balancing the information, the amount of information, with the clarity of the information, and making it so that it can be quickly understood. Because most people who are viewing these portfolios, this has been one of the things that has over the years been very useful to know, and they don't have that much time. You get maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds, right? Where they're just like, hop on the page, check out the vibe, and they decide whether or not they want to move forward to the next step. And so a lot of the points, the first aesthetic impression that portfolio gives is so important. And I think that's why it's really important to team up, I think, with someone. If you are weak in that, team up with someone who is a lot stronger in that, and contribute and figure out ways to provide each other value. Another thing I've noticed is during my research of other people's portfolios, I've noticed that there is this pattern of people hiring other designers to design their portfolios. And I think that's really interesting because sometimes I think it's really difficult for us to like self-reflect and enough to really get an accurate picture of our strengths and that it represent that visually into a digital portfolio. Because I always think about our websites are like our digital attire. If the internet's a big party, our portfolio is like how we dress to that party.
That's really good. I feel like the importance of a portfolio is a good preparation, because when you are a business owner or when you're just in general pitching ideas, you often, those emails reaching out for, let's say, you want a collaboration or something, if you attach that email, that message with a deck, visualizing what the collaboration could look like, explaining why this collaboration makes sense and why is it valuable and the benefits of the other partner that you want to collaborate with, why is it beneficial to you. I think the portfolio is a preparation for these moments as well, because in my experience, I have found myself now working on decks quite a lot because I wanna, the collaborations or the ventures that I want to accomplish, they require a level of commitment from your side, a investment of time and effort to put together these visual presentations, which in a way are like portfolios, or I think the essence is the same. And because you're presenting ideas visually, and it's a good way for you to start training yourself and to prepare for this moment, creating decks that make sense to anyone on the other side of the conversation. And I think that's something we can touch on another episode once we start talking about freelance or being a business owner of a creative agency or something like that. Yes, that's something that it's on its own, could be on its own a topic of conversation.
Yeah, I think so too. I think a lot of this comes really down to understanding your own, like understanding and articulating your own value and figuring out where your strengths are and doubling down on those strengths. I think one of the things that I've struggled with is figuring out, because I love learning new things. I like getting into things that I maybe not so comfortable with. And I've had to learn how to balance that with knowing what I'm strong in and doubling down on that, while also being open to trying out new things. And I wanted to ask you this: whenever you are working on a project and you're faced with doing something that you're not so familiar with or comfortable in, how do you balance that in the process with not spending too much time maybe relearning or learning a new skill completely from scratch? First of all, have you ever had to do that? And how did you handle it? Maybe that's a better way to phrase the question.
Yes, I have been in a few situations where the assignment, it's a little bit outside my field of expertise. So there are a couple ways of tackling this scenario. And one is by, okay, I don't know how to do something. Can I seek someone that is the expert in the field, or is an expert at what I'm trying to accomplish, but I'm not familiar enough with this? So that's one way, where you ask for advice. You ask for, maybe if you have the resources, you can ask the person to be a consultant. or to even come on board into the project to help you out. And I think this happens quite often, because I feel like sometimes you don't want to miss out on an opportunity just because you don't know enough. You can always, let's say, if it's like a professional project, you can always find a way to, when you're seeking the compensation for this project, you make sure that you bill for that. You make room in your budget for that extra expense that you had to do because you had to hire an expert to help you accomplish the project. And so that's one way to look at it, just seeking an expert in the field that you need help with. And then another one could be, I don't know how often this happens or how acceptable this is, but I think also it's okay to be honest and say, this is outside my field of expertise. I don't feel 100% confident that I'm gonna deliver the best job I can. However, I know so and so that can be a better resource or a better person to accomplish this job. That's another way to approach this scenario, and there is nothing wrong with that, because sometimes we don't want to go through the headache of putting yourself in a stressful situation where you say yes to something but you have no idea how to deliver. So I think it's good to, when you're in this situation, it's good to take a moment to think about, okay, if I say yes to this project, do I have the resources or do I need the people that can help me accomplish this job? Once you answer those questions, if the answer is yes, then yes, I'll take on the project. If the answer is no, I would highly likely not take on the project because I don't have the resources, neither I know the people that can help me accomplish this project within the timeline that I have been given. Because usually these projects have deadlines, and if you cannot get those resources to your availability on time, then it's going to be really challenging delivering, and also it's going to be really expensive. But yeah, those would be my two scenarios or two ways of tackling this dilemma.
Cool.
What would you do?
I think I would do the same thing. I have this question that I've been wanting to ask you. What makes a great manager? Maybe let's start with this. What makes a bad manager, and then what makes a great manager based on your experiences?
So in my experiences, I know what I don't want to say bad, but just like lack of good management looks like. And I know what a good manager looks like. And I think in just across the board, management is pretty self-explanatory. You have to manage time. You have to manage expectations. You have to manage people. You have to manage relationships. And sometimes managers don't do them all, or they manage the wrong thing. They manage things at the wrong time. Because I think to be a great manager, you have to dial in all those aspects right for you to be a good leader. Because I think a manager should be a leader, and in terms of facilitating what the team needs to accomplish the project at hand. And so there is a fine line, of course, between managing too much, which is micromanaging, or just being out of the picture where you need support and manager is nowhere to be found, or if there is a delays in the project, the manager is not keeping track, and then when the project review happens, then there are surprises. But had the manager kept track of the progress, it wouldn't be a surprise. But I think let me just focus on what great manager looks like. And I have that in my experience in my career. During my time at Yeezy, I had a great manager, or say boss. I had great leadership. I want to say I had great leadership. I had great management because, one, they understood my work and what it takes to do my work, not only from a resources point of view, but also a time perspective. They know that something takes a week, it takes 2 weeks. Or they know that if I can do something by the end of the day, I can do it by the end of the day. Or if I come to them, of course, you have to explain why something cannot be done based on the expectations that they have for the project. If you come back and say, hey, this is not physical because 1, 2, 3 reasons why it cannot be done. And they have to be solid reasons. And they have to be understanding that we're working with limited resources, just with a lot of limitations and challenges, and that we're trying to do the best we can to deliver the best way we can. So it's just someone that understands that and that can have that conversation, and someone who can you be honest with. Because I think that's the biggest key for a manager, and then for the people being managed, is honesty. Because I've learned this from another boss of mine. He once told me that I would rather have an employee that is honest rather than an employee that is like the most skillful. So honesty is it's highly valued, and it should be highly valued, honesty, because it just gives transparency in terms of not only what we're doing, but how we're doing it, why we're doing it. And it just makes a better work environment when we all are honest with each other. And yeah, a great management and leadership looks like they let you be, they let you do your work, and they let you express yourself and your necessities. Because you also have to be able to come to them and say, hey, if you want this to be successful, I need these things. And they have to listen, and they have to deliver as well, and they have to facilitate. Because at the end of the day, it's like a team effort. It's a team effort that everyone is in the same boat. Because whether you're a manager or you're the person being managed, at the end of the day, like if you fail, we all fail. If you win, we all win. And so it's important to keep that into perspective, that a great manager lets you be, and is not management. Also, there is a misconception of like management is control, and it's not about control. It's just about keeping track of where things are and asking, why is this project at this stage, or what is going on here? And then that's where honesty comes into play, and you say, there hasn't been made progress here because this machine is broken, or this machine is slow. If we could outsource this to here, then we could do it faster. So with a conversation and honesty, things can go a long way. And I think bad management is the opposite of that. As simple as that. So I would love to hear your perspective on good management versus bad management.
Yeah, I think in my experience, I've had a good bit of both, good and the lack thereof. And I think in the best case scenarios, or the best managers that I've had, have been very organized. They've been very communicative with important numbers, deadlines, any data that is important to the success of the project, as well as being open to finding the answers to questions that are open and necessary to answer before making progress. And they're also they're there to support. They're there to contribute as well in the process of feedback They're very open to feedback as well as actively giving it out. And I love what you said. It's not really about control. It's really just about organizing and maintaining expectations throughout the process. And on the opposite end, let me just add a little bit more to what good management has been. It almost feels like when you work with a good manager, like you obtain a superpower, right? They just make you feel like, whoa, I didn't think I could do that, but now I was able to do that. And you realize that it's because you're part of a really great team, and the person that's driving is letting you do your thing, but they are adding their own expertise throughout the process. So it's like you're able to lift a lot more than you thought you could because of that input that they provide. And I think it's also like what you said about the honesty part. I think it's a lot about honesty, and it's a lot about trust. It's a lot about knowing that you can trust them and they can trust you. And there is a, there isn't an ego involved. They're really just worried or focused or concerned with the work being great. And it's not whose idea was or whose ideas are better. It's really just, or hierarchy of people. It's really just like, how do we make this the best thing possible for the person that we're making it for, or the people, or etc. And so that is an environment that I think brings out the best in all of us, and it brings the best in the process. And I think the lack of good management comes down to just, in my experience, it's really just been like miscommunication, a lack of transparency, disorganization, and really just like micromanagement at some point. I think it's because what tends to happen is once the management feels like things are not going in the right direction because whatever they have going on, or whatever the team state is in, they start to micromanage, and that just backfires that's just bad for everyone, because one, everything moves at a turtle's pace, because you can't do anything unless you get it signed off and ever present. And so you, like, them being like hovering over you means that they're away from their work. And it's just, I see you having a reaction, Cesar, and I feel like you know what I'm talking about.
Totally. It's a bad recipe for failure, and not a good kind of failure. No, man, I totally know how you're feeling, because management shouldn't be limiting or controlling or complicating the situation. Management should be more of facilitating the work you're trying to do. You're doing your job. Let me do my job. And just, if I'm successful, the team is successful. But if not, if you don't manage a team, then it starts falling apart, and then performance drops. Nothing gets delivered. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's like the cons outweigh the benefits of micromanagement, because you think, oh, I'm keeping track of every single thing. But in reality, you are hindering the creative process. And at the end of the day, we are adults, and I can meet the deadline, but just let me get there the way I get there. And I think if you have any comments or feedback about my process, yes, we can talk about it after we're done with the project. And also, I wanted to quickly add that some of the challenges in management stem from lack of management skills, lack of expertise, lack of working in teams. And I see that a scenario happening quite often in companies, or like in my experience, I've seen that happen quite often, where someone with a few years of experience, they become managers or they hold leadership positions, and then by default their idea to manage is to micromanage. And I feel like you need some time in the trenches to understand what the people below you or what the people you're working with goes through for you, so that when you become a leader, then you can be empathetic and you can also understand where they're coming from, because you once were in that position. And that's why I think there is an importance of time, enough time to become wise, not only from a skill set, like something that you can learn in books, but just becoming wise from doing the job. And I think that's an ingredient missing in most of the cases where there is mismanagement, is that the person didn't have management background or hasn't been prepared from a skill point of view to manage people, or like to have the proper ways to handle situations. So I think, just having the expertise to do it is also important.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned about having the time, getting an experience that allows you to know what good management is and what bad management is. That way you can tell the difference and you're able to know what to do and what not to do. And I think what it comes down to is what you mentioned, it's experience, because it almost feels like really good managers don't feel like they have anything to prove. They're just very confident in the sense that they give off this trusting, they impute trust. But I was going to say that it reminds me of the conductor, an orchestra's conductor, right? Like a really good manager stays where they need to stay. They coordinate the tempo. They don't get down from their pedestal and start grabbing the violin
to play your instrument.
Exactly.
Hey, let me do it like this.
Yeah. They stay in their positions. Everybody stays in their positions. But I think there's a book that I started to read a while back. It's called The Making of a Manager, which I need to finish. But I think it's good to get other people's experience, whether that's through books or seminars or whatever, to try to gain from other people's experiences. But I do think that leadership is so important when creating products and creating design, because it trickles down, right? The quality trickles down. It's really difficult to be at your best when the top there is not a coordination there.
Yeah, like synchronization.
Yeah, exactly. Because I compare working in a design team a lot to music and being in a band. There's a lot of chemistry that's needed. There's a lot of that.
Timing, motion, and tempo, and playing the right note. Also the right settings. If your volume is too loud, then you're not gonna hear the other instrument.
And you have to have that baseline of trust, because when you're getting feedback from someone and it's negative, or it's hard to hear the feedback, you have to feel inside that it's coming from a great place. Like it's coming from a place of, hey, I want this product to be as great as it can be. And so part of our agreement is we're going to be honest with each other. But the idea is that when you're getting feedback from somebody, you're getting feedback knowing that person has the product's best interest in mind.
Yeah, those are very important topics that affect us day to day in in our jobs, and to the extent that if we cannot do our jobs and we just don't feel fulfilled in our career, we're not trees, and we are willing to make the necessary adjustments to improve the situation. Meaning, if I have to leave a job because this is looking like a dead end to me, I'm gonna leave and look for something better, or for a better culture that understands me as a creative, that understands my work, and that allows me to be successful. And that's the importance of work culture, and upper management being supportive, and middle management also being supportive. And yeah, it makes us come back to the scenario where we might be in jobs that we have challenging times with management, but we're okay with that situation and we're not doing anything about it. And I think those situations should have a timeline where if I don't see changes within the next 3 to 6 months, I think I'm in the wrong place. And that's where we should truly prepare for that moment when we leave a job, and either to have something lined up or to be prepared to have a lot of things on the table that can help you transition into your next career chapter. And it's important for us to be aware of that. We shouldn't wait until we're let go, because what if we're never let go?
Yeah.
And company's okay with keeping you there, but you, in your end, you're the one getting shortchanged by not having a team or a company culture that doesn't value your input, your work, your ideas. So I think, yes, it's important for us to be aware and mindful of these scenarios.
Yeah. I'm curious now. I'd like to segue over to that topic of what to do once you know that you want to make a change in your trajectory, whether it's looking for a new role, or whether it's something that's out of your control and you've been let go and you have to move on to the next thing. In your mind, what would be your recommendations for next steps, for what to do to get prepared for that next role?
I think definitely, as we discussed, it was to have a resume and portfolio ready to share, and then reach out to your close network, people that you feel comfortable with talking about your career, and share where you're coming from. And also, if you have someone that you trust in your company, which I hope you do, I hope you have allies in your workplace, to tell them hey, I don't think this is it for me anymore. And they can even help you. I don't know, sometimes if the company is big, they can help you position in a better place that fulfills your career better within the same company, or they could help you outside, helping you find something or connect you with someone that can be the answer that you're looking for. So I think making sure that you are prepared for that transition, and also be prepared, because sometimes things longer than expected. After making a decision, we have to be prepared for those scenarios, because things change. And I thought I was going to take 3 months to find another job. It's been 6 months. What do I do? So being mentally and financially prepared for that scenario where if things take longer, what do you do? But yeah, I think as long as you're prepared, I think it's easier for you to do what you need to do, which is focus on finding that next calling in your career, whether there is another full-time job or to freelance, starting your own company. Those all are viable options that I think you need to evaluate and assess if they are the right choice for you in terms of your next move in your career.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I also think that being honest with oneself in terms of where you are in your career. Like I think a lot of professionals who have been seasoned and experienced and have worked with a lot of companies have a lot more success in freelance once they decide to go freelance versus someone who has just started, has been a year or two somewhere and then decides to go freelance because they have a much more limited maybe breadth of work, or they have less experience working in the field or whatnot. So being honest with where we are in our career trajectory, I think is very important as we're like curating our portfolio, just to like know where our edge is and being able to focus on that. I think I would add also to that, when you're building your work, you have to see whether it's a hiring manager or you're trying to win new business, you have to see the viewer of your portfolio as a user themselves, right? They're using your website to understand your work and understand your process and decide ultimately whether or not they want to work with you or bring you in for further review. And so I think it's very key to write down like what you're looking for and who it is that it will be looking at your work. That way you can like tailor make your portfolio and your resume to fit their needs, because ultimately you want them to understand that you have something that they need and that what you do, you can do for them as well, right?
Yeah. That's very important to like make sure that you're chasing not the right opportunities, but the right crowd, the right audience, so that they can find your work appealing. And that's something that I've had to learn throughout my career, is that it goes a long way having the right the conversation with the right person. And now that I am in a position where I'm constantly looking for opportunities for new projects, I am very mindful of who I'm talking with and making sure that I bring up things that are relevant to them, that could be beneficial to them. Yeah, being very receptive and very sensitive to your audience. And it's this, I'm glad we were talking about this in this episode, because I think it's a great way for us to cover from beginning to end what happens after an unexpected career change happens in your life, and how to handle that situation, as well as what goes through your mind, what conversations go through your mind. I'm glad we're covering this aspect or this side of the spectrum and an unexpected career change happens.
Yeah, same. I think it's something that is very valuable to anyone who is looking and anyone who is thinking about looking. Just remembering that you have to learn to speak the language. You have to meet the person that is looking for your skills and your expertise. You have to meet them where they are, versus like showing work and having it not so easy to understand. Like you have to digest it for them sometimes to make it easy to scan and all that. And I say all this to say that knowing how to package your work is so important. And I've learned this the hard way, because you can have really great work, but if it's not packaged the way it needs to be, like visual aesthetic matters so much. And I think Caesar knows this better than anyone. The way you present the work aesthetically, it's what determines whether someone's going to stay on your page and be curious to learn more, or just get on your page, see something and just be like, oh, this isn't the right thing, let's move on. So aesthetic is really key to communicate intelligence, organization, and I think, and I want us to touch on this deeper, maybe in the next episode, about identifying your edge, your strengths, and really honing in on that.
Definitely, because we're gonna be defined by our strengths. However, also knowing our limitations, or not limitations, but more of a frame to work within. And once we dial that in, I think you have some, how can I say, you have targets to hit, and I think it just becomes easier or more doable. How to package, again, as you said, how to package your work, how to present it. And it will also like help you narrow down what you're doing, and it'll give you a roadmap to execute versus being stuck in the, oh, what if I do this? What if I do that? Like more of like aimlessly doing work that you don't, if it's helping you or hindering you. So yes, it is important to define those limits as well as knowing your strengths so that you amplify that in your portfolio and work. And because that's what's going to get you higher, or that's what's going to get you the project. And definitely is something that we should cover in the next episode.
Yeah, I think this was really great. I think knowing what to do when you're looking for a new opportunity really comes down to having your portfolio ready to go, having your resume ready to go, having all those touch points that someone who is looking for your expertise and your skills, having all of those assets ready to go, I think is really important, especially during these times, if you will. I guess it's inevitable and nothing is really for sure. So it's always good to at least have the comfort in knowing that your work is packaged really well and your resume is pristine and ready to go. I think this was really great conversation, Cesar, and I learned a lot from it, and I'm looking forward to the next one, learning more about how to develop an edge in our creative journey.
Thank you guys for listening to episode 3. This is the Moodboard podcast, where Erin and I help creatives unlock their creative potential by having meaningful and insightful conversation.
We're looking forward to the next one. And thank you for listening. And Cesar, I think it's episode 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my God. Sorry, I lost track. Episode 4. I don't know what I was thinking. Oh, because we're covering a similar topic than episode 3, but yes, it is episode 4. Sorry. At least I sounded confident.
Yeah, you sounded very confident. I look forward to the next one, and make sure to stay tuned.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for listening.